McKee West Rucker Go Balls 24/7 here inside of Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center with our full court press following Tennessee's 74-56 win over Georgia, a top 25 win for Tennessee that folks don't like defense anymore, so I guess we call it an ugly first half of basketball. In reality, it was two really good defenses battling it out. Yes, really both sides needed to knock down some of the shots that were presented to them, but for the most part, I felt like it was two really good defenses going at it, kind of boxers early on in a match, figuring one another out, and Tennessee trailed by 5 at halftime, and they came out and went on a 26-4 run, sparked by Zakai Ziegler.
Yeah, and they scored, I think they scored the final 4 points of the first half, so it really ended up being like a 30-4 run or whatever it was. I mean, it was ridiculous. But to me, this is one of those games that if you're Tennessee, you're happy that it's here. And again, for the millionth time, you're happy that you have veteran guards, because veteran guards don't usually panic, especially when they're at home. And in that game, it just kind of felt like Tennessee was never rushed or never bothered. It felt like, some shots weren't going in. Lanier was having another tough night, but they just kind of had that mindset of, the defense is doing fine. The shots are going to come, and this game's going to be fine. And it never really felt like there was too much of a concern there. But then they go ahead and take all doubt of it out early in the second half. But just an impressive night. I mean, Meshack was really good. Zakai Ziegler went on a mind melter there in the second half and just completely took over the game. And the guys inside were tough and physical. I thought it was a good night.
Yeah, and you talk about the experience of Tennessee. It overwhelmed the inexperience of Georgia in those first couple of minutes. Down in the paint with their two highly touted freshmen. They did not have their usual numbers, especially as a duo, in large part because of Felix Akpara, Igor Milicic, Cade Phillips. I thought those guys played really well inside. And then Silas DeMary Jr., he hit a couple of shots, but Zakai Ziegler got the best of him as the game wore on. That was a fun matchup, and Zakai really stepped up and answered the bell. And it was, maybe after Zakai's career is over, if we point back to a game, maybe not the biggest moment he had tonight, but show me a game that shows Zakai Ziegler as a player in the second half of tonight, because he struggled to shoot the ball in the first half.
And 1 of 7 or whatever it was.
Yes, it was not ideal. Second half, I mean, that was Zakai Ziegler to a T, knocking down shots. He picked up his 600th assist of his career, passed Santiago Vescovi for most steals in program history. And is, let me see if I can get this right, 1,000 points, 600 assists, 200 steals, the first or one of 2 players in the last 20 years or so in the SEC, along with Alex Caruso, to have 1,000 points, 600 assists, 200 steals. I believe those are the numbers. That defines Zakai Ziegler, the player. On top of the defense, by the way, I know the steals are involved there, but he was pressuring the basketball inbounds, or steals a lazy inbound pass, and that was kind of really when he swung and hit a couple of heat check threes, and the top on this place blew off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned the big men, because I thought the whole game they were doing what they needed to do. They were so physical on the inside, and they land body blows so you can land haymakers later. I mean, the whole thing kind of ties together like that. But with Ziegler, I mean, in this era where it's so many one and done or two and done stars, and these are the guys that you think of with college basketball now. It's just nice to know that there are still players like this, guys who are 4-year college players who are just really, really, really good basketball players. And I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this since 2000. I don't know that I've ever in any sport covered a coach who had more love and trust and respect for a player than Rick Barnes has for Zakai Ziegler. And I know that familiarity breeds contempt, and sometimes if guys are around for a long time and Tennessee haven't been to a Final Four, and there's some frustration at times from people in certain situations, but I'll never for the life of me understand why anybody has anything bad to say about that guy, what he does on a daily basis for this program, what he's done for 4 years, what he does every single day they're on this court or across the street in practice. Just unbelievable. He can take over games by himself as a 5'8" guy who maybe was going to go to St. Peter's.
Yeah. Also good to see Jordan Gainey get going. Was in a bit of a slump to start SEC play here against Arkansas, at Florida. Struggled first half of that Texas game, and then knocked down some big shots at the end, and I felt that was a confidence booster for him, and he really carried it into tonight. He had a game high, or a team high, 19 points, I believe it was, 14 of those points in the second half. He was really, really good, feeding off of Zakai Ziegler. That's a nice little duo that I don't think is talked about enough. Those two play well off of one another.
Yeah, the Gainey is, especially on a night when Lanier's not having a great night, it becomes so important for Tennessee. You've only got, 9 scholarship players that are available, basically, so everybody matters.
Yep.
But Gainey matters quite a bit, especially when Lanier's not having a great night. And, it's funny, would dovetail into a funny, longer form podcast conversation at some point after the Reese Chapman stuff I said last year. There are teams in this league and good teams in this country that Jordan Gainey would average 15, 16 points a game for. He just plays for a team where you've got Lanier, you've got Ziegler, they play defense. And so he can do it, and when he gets in rhythm, he can score in bunches. He is a natural scorer. He and Dubar both have that in their bag. They just, for this team, it's not always needed, but, when it's there, you like it.
Yeah, and lastly with Chaz, another tough night for him. Has not looked like himself since the Arkansas performance last Saturday when he had a season-high 29 points. He's just looked out of I don't even know that he's looked out of sorts because he's taken good shots. They're just not falling for him right now. Rick talked after the game that he actually thought he did a really, really good job tonight of making sure that he was ready to shoot the ball coming off of screens and whatnot. And that's been a big point of emphasis from Rick for Chaz these last several weeks of practice. So it sounds like the coaching staff sees Chaz improving in areas that we as non-basketball coaches don't see, or the box score doesn't see. But at some point in time, and everybody in the program says that, I believe it as well, at some point Chaz is going to start hitting shots again. He's too talented of a shooter not to, but this is 3 games now, and at some point the rubber is going to meet the road.
Yeah, listen, I don't care if you're a guy who can score 35, 40 in a game. Here, if you're going to be here, you're going to play basketball the way they want you to play it, or you're not going to be on the floor. And so Lanier can do things, and maybe defensively he doesn't have to be the best at times because he does carry the weight so much offensively at times, but he puts in the work. Tonight, I think maybe one, if I'm pushing, maybe 2 shots were ones he didn't have to take. The rest of them were shots that I think there were more shots he could have taken than turned down good looks than took bad shots. So
you could tell he hesitated. You could tell that confidence kind of wavering up. He may not admit it, but you could tell by the actions to where he kind of flinched for a second.
And I think, listen, this guy physically can handle this level, but he does need to adjust to it. There's no other way to say it. When you're at North Florida, you're not playing 2 games a week like this physicality, it wears on you, right? And now people have seen film of him playing for Rick Barnes. So before, early in the season, they had to look at, okay, here's what Barnes has done in the past, here's what Lanier's done in the past, how do they mesh? And now there's tape, so So they've made adjustments to him. They've done some things physically with him. They're doing some more jersey pulling, some stuff you saw with Connect. Connect had to adjust, and Lanier will too. And I think he will. I think the way he carries himself mentally, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, no better way to break out of a shooting slump than going and shooting in the quirky angles of Memorial Gymnasium. Hey, it may work for him. He's a Nashville native. Maybe that's all it takes for him to break out. Wes and I will both be in Nashville on Saturday for Tennessee's next game against the in-state rival Vanderbilt Commodores. Tip-off is scheduled for 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network, and we've got plenty of coverage of tonight's game and leading up to Saturday's game at GoVols247.com. He's Wes Rucker. I'm Ben McKee.